mother's school bell. Ladies and gentlemen, the director of the Portland Public Library, Sarah Moore.
Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us tonight at your library. Tonight we get to participate in democracy. We get to listen, ask questions, seek information that will help us make a decision about who can best lead our city and who we will vote for in November. And the library is honored to welcome our candidates as people who have something to say, just as we welcome everyone in our community every day. Respect for many voices is a hallmark of your library, and we appreciate the respect we're able to bring to each other at tonight's debate. Thank you to everyone who is here to make this moment possible. To Herb and the students from the Southern Maine Community College, to the mayor, to our candidates, and our librarians. And thank you to everyone in our audience, both here and at home.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I present the third elected mayor of Portland in our modern times, and the first woman to be so elected, the Honorable Kate Snyder.
Thanks, everybody. Oh, thanks, guys. Thank you. That's very generous. Thank you. That's really nice. We still have to work together and all that. No, I'm just kidding. I am so grateful to the candidates who are up here, and I consider all of you wonderful people and friends. My name's Kate Snyder. I'm the current mayor, and I have to say, I'm not going to be as quick as Sarah, but I'm going to try to be kind of quick. When I was given the opportunity to offer a welcome this evening, I thought, why? I'm not running again. It's all about these guys. But the more I thought about it, and I went back and forth with Cliff, I thought, if there's an opportunity for me to offer something to think about, I'll do that. This is so important. I said yes because you're all here tonight to learn about your next mayor, and you care about our city, you care about its governance, where we are and where we're headed. And I will assume that all of you subscribe to the theory that an informed citizenry is a cornerstone of democracy. So that's why you're here. You want to learn more about these people and think about where we're going. And here's what I want to leave you with tonight is the word mayor. It's such a weird word, in my opinion. I think that everybody comes to the word mayor with their own idea of what that means. And I think that has made it really hard for the last 12 years. I have struggled with that a lot over the last 4 years. Someone will say, you're the mayor, you should be able to do this. Well, maybe if I was the mayor of Detroit, I would have that kind of authority. But please, as part of your informed citizenry, read the charter. The description of the mayor's powers and duties is less than a page. Well, that's not true. It's 2 pages. But I urge you, and with all seriousness, I always keep the charter and the council rules handy because these are the things that define the work that I'm able to do. I believe so much that I was elected to do a job. Right? I wasn't elected to be charismatic. I wasn't elected because of the boxes that I check on a form. I was elected to be in a role and to do a job for our community. And the job description is laid out in our charter. So I take it really, really seriously because I simply don't have the authority to do certain things that people think a mayor can do. And I do have the ability to do certain things that are lined up in the job. And one of those things, and I heard it in last night's debate that I watched a bit of, was collaborate. Part of the work is collaboration because you're one of 9 votes. You're chairing the meeting. You get to talk about the vision and the goals and the priorities, but if you read the charter, you see that those goals and priorities are set by the council. When I go to Augusta, I speak on behalf of the legislative committee of the council that has done the work to offer guidance. When I speak about the city of Portland's goals and priorities, I'm representing a body that I was elected to be a part of. One of 9. And so even though I'm the spokesperson and I get to stand up like this, I want you to know that I take very seriously the fact that I don't stand above, I stand with. And I think that when you think about the job and who to vote for, I urge you to think about who you're hiring to do the job. Who is going to fulfill the obligation of the role that we have defined in our city's charter? Look at somebody's background, look at their life, look at their work, look at how they approach the issues and the people around them. Are they doing the work together with their colleagues, which in my view is very required by the city charter, or are they off on their own? What have they done in their background to prepare them for all the elements that we as a community seek in our elected officials? So that's up to you. That's why these debates are so great. That's part of this process. But I thought that I would urge you to read the charter, urge you to take seriously how we define our role here in the city of Portland, Maine, so that you can set your expectations and you can set the next mayor up for success and work. And the last thing I'll say, and this was triggered by watching a little bit this morning, was we all want to be, as mayor, you want to be the best facilitator, collaborator, listener you can be. You want to have compassion, and you want to speak for the community voice. There's no one community voice in the city of Portland. There just isn't. Not everybody voted for me, right? And people who didn't vote for me may not have really wanted me to be the person who stands up as the spokesperson, but that's the deal. That's what we get. So I think it's my job to make sure that I'm representing fairly the work of the council. And I also think that it's my job to understand that I don't embody everybody's vision and everybody's views, but I do my best to offer you my best thinking, represent the work of the council, be a fair and reasonable person in our community, and again, be faithful to the job and the role that we all have decided is the role of mayor in the city of Portland. So again, thank you to the candidates, and thank you to you all for being here tonight, and good luck.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I present to you the next mayor of the city of Portland. Since Portland returned to an elected mayor, this is only the fourth time in a century that there has been a panel like this one tonight. Tonight is the first time this cycle that all of the candidates have assembled for a debate in this situation. The first of what will no doubt be many times before the end of this upcoming, fascinating, and challenging election year. We are privileged, and so is Portland. On your seats, you will find a Press Herald article with the biography of each of the candidates. You will find the blue flyer with tonight's agenda. You will also find a file card. That file card, during tonight's debate, should you feel moved to ask a question of the panel, may be used by you to write out that question. Our floor manager, another one of my fine students, will see your card if you raise it in the air, and will come and take it from you. And it will be brought over to this table where other students and the coordinator, Cliff Gallant, will be sorting the questions. Should we have time at the end of the program, time allowing, we may be able to have one or two of those audience questions. Because, and before we began, the candidates, by drawing lots, selected the first candidate who will answer the first question this evening. We will rotate all the questions in order down the panel after that. Gentlemen, who had A? Mr. Pugh has A. No candidate will always be first. No candidate will always be last. Every candidate will have the opportunity to answer every question. The timekeepers are seated down front. Opening statements will each have 2 minutes per candidate. And we will begin with a write-in candidate who qualified by September 8th to register with the city clerk as that write-in candidate. And that person would be Mr. George Rowe. Would you come forward, please, Mr. Rowe, and start the 2 minutes when he begins to speak?
Great, thank you. My name is George Rowe. I just live a few blocks from here, technically in West Bayside, but basically central downtown. Big library patron. I come into the Portland room a couple times a month if I have time. I decided to run because the 8 years that I've lived in Portland, homelessness has been pretty much almost a night and day experience for myself and my wife. We've kind of lived in the heart of a lot of the trouble. But this summer has been particularly extra crazy. And part of that is that basically the whole city has been experiencing what a lot of folks in this area, including the library, I think deals with these issues on a daily basis as well. And that is what led me to finally have a moment of frustration literally on the morning of the 8th to make my decision to run as a write-in. And I hope to meet as many of you as possible. It was too late for me to participate on the same level as everyone else. But I do want to give you a window into my world. I have been trying to improve our civic culture in our city for a long time. And basically by asking tough questions and expecting our civil servants and our public servants, our elected servants, to anticipate and get ahead of things. And unfortunately, in public life, that's hard to do. And I certainly don't believe that we're doing well in that department. But for instance, tonight I wanted to reveal how much the mayor is making on an annual salary, as well as the stipends that the city council members get. And I tried to get that information out of City Hall this week, and I was stonewalled. It should be at people's fingertips. It's in the city charter that the city council is supposed to be stipulating those things before this election season begins. But it's not there. It's not easy for us to get, and that is crazy. Thank you.
And thank you, Mr. Rowe. For the sake of convenience, what we will do is proceed down the panel directly before we start the questions. For the 2 minutes each candidate shall have by way of making opening comments. We'll start with Mr. Costa.
Thank you, Herb. Thank you to the other candidates for participating and for running. And thank you all for turning out this evening to hear what it is that we have to say. My name is Justin Costa. I am running for mayor because I believe that Portland needs a change right now. I think that we have an incredible community that cares about one another, that stands up for each other. And I think that we are facing a set of monumental issues right now that we have struggled to adapt to over the last several years. What I have witnessed over the last few years is that we as a city government are struggling to translate broad themes like affordable housing, homelessness, education, into concrete policies to address the challenges that we face and make the kind of progress that betters the lives of people throughout Portland. I have been very privileged to serve in government since I was age 25. I served 6 years on the Portland School Board. I served 6 years on the Portland City Council. And in both of those roles, I got things done. And I think what I would urge every voter listening to all of us to think about and ground yourself in as we progress through this campaign is more than the words that we speak, because we know that we agree on much more than we disagree on, but stay grounded in results and actions and what it is that we are doing to actually improve the lives of the citizens that we are running to represent. Have our words matched up with our actions for those of us who are in office or have been in office, and who is it that is best prepared to take us beyond an agreement on what the issues are to moving forward and creating real change in policy that affects people's lives. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Costa. For the sake of convenience, we're going directly down the panel for the introductory comments. And our next presenter of the opening comments will be Mr. Pugh.
Thank you. So, hi, everyone. I'm Dylan Pugh. I use he, him pronouns, and it's great to be with you here tonight. Portland is a really special place to me. It's the first place I've called home in my adult life, and it's the place that has supported me through some tough and tumultuous times. You know, I am only here today because of the support that I've received in Portland, and it's allowed me to grow into the person I am today. So when I say that Portland is special to me, I'm not talking about the restaurants or the scenery, although obviously those things are great. But what I mean is that the people in this city showed up for me when I needed it most, and now I'm here to show up for them. Because what I sense is that we are at an inflection point. And what I am worried about is that the version of Portland that embraced me 10 years ago is slipping away. And my family and most of my friends have been forced out due to housing costs, and it's hard for me to stay put sometimes. You know, I bought my first house in 2020, and it was absolutely brutal. And let's even talk about our unhoused neighbors. You know, this is hundreds of people that are sleeping outside. It's 2023. This should be totally unthinkable, but here we are. And I know for many of you, this will be your first introduction to me, and you might look at my background and my experience and think that's not what you might expect from a politician, and you're absolutely right. And I hope that you look at that and you can see that that's actually a real strength, because what that ensures is that I'm never going to lose sight of the people behind the issues that we're going to talk about tonight. So my sincere hope is that I can bring everything in my life so far to bear in the city of Portland to give back to the people and the community that has supported me so much over the years. So thank you again for being here. I'm looking forward to talking to you.
Thank you, Mr. Pugh. Mr. Ali.
Thank you very much. My name is Pius Ali. Thank you for joining us tonight. Portland is a city with robust community values, tremendous heart, and unlimited opportunity. We're also a city that is changing in many ways for better, but also in ways that have made life harder for too many. As economic growth squeezes out middle-class families and workers earn wages that are below what is livable, climate change threatens our working waterfront, and our housing crisis pushes more families to the streets and young families to surrounding communities. We need a mayor who will take bold collaborative action to address these challenges. I am committed to that collaboration and that action. Tonight, I plan to lay out that vision. But ideas I will lay out tonight can only be achieved by working together through active engagement, community involvement, and collective efforts. We can make our city a vibrant, safe, and inclusive place that serves and protects us all without prejudice. Together, and as your mayor, we will forge a path towards a brighter future where everyone has the opportunity to thrive. And that is why I asked for your vote this evening. I have lived that life, I have worked with you, and I will continue to work with you. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Mr. Dion.
Thank you, Mr. Adams, the Right Honorable Mr. Adams. Thank you for your service in the past and your continued participation in the community. Good evening, everyone. My name is Mark Dion. I'm currently the counselor for District 5. I'm running for mayor because I want to ask two significant questions as we move forward. Two questions that I'll pose to the council should I return as their mayor. Is what we're doing making this a safer community? And will it become more affordable? I'm not going to present a lot of programs because many that I've heard already are aspirational, but I think I can charge the council with an agenda that'll help ask those questions. I came to Portland, I was 17 years old. I had arrived at the big city. I couldn't find the directions to Boston. I went to the university and I spent 21 years in the police department and earned the privilege to serve as the deputy chief of police. City Hall was satisfied that I had the temperament, the judgment, and the education to handle whatever crisis the department was asked to resolve on behalf of the residents of this city. I went on and became a lawyer, received a master's in human services administration to balance the idea of law and justice, and I went on to serve in the state legislature as a state representative and then as a senator. And I'll distinguish my career by this fact. When there were tough issues facing the legislator, when they wanted somebody to bridge between Democrat and Republican, I was that agent. I am one of the few who ever served as chair of two separate committees. One in criminal justice with a direction from the Speaker of the House to pass a gun control bill. And we did, a bipartisan gun control bill that LePage vetoed. I led on the energy issue to see if we could control and contain the rising cost of power. Those were important responsibilities, and I discharged it in a bipartisan way. And to this day, Republicans still say, you're someone we can work with. So if I go to Augusta as your mayor, I have the relationships, I have the contacts, and more importantly, I have the trust on both sides of the aisle that I've come to get something done.
Time. Thank you, sir. Mr. Zaro.
Thank you so much. Want me to use that one? How's this, everybody? All right, thank you so much, Herb. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Madam Mayor, if you're still here. My name is Andrew Zaro, and I am running to be the next mayor of Portland, Maine. I see a lot of familiar faces in the audience tonight. It's because I saw a lot of you in my coffee shop for 6 years when I was a small business owner in this city. And we talked a lot about what matters most to us. That's in part what inspired me to run for the city council. And for the last 3 years, I've been working closely with my constituents as the District 4 counselor to try to make their lives better, to be more available, to make small changes with big impacts. And I'm running to be the next mayor of Portland, Maine, because we're facing significant challenges in our city. And I believe we need a leader with the vision, passion, and experience to meet those challenges head on. And I've done this before in both the private and the public sector. I did it in Woodford's Corner when I brought businesses, residents, and organizations together to form the state's first metropolitan Main Street district, revitalizing the corner and attracting new businesses. I did it at my small business by hosting pop-up vaccine clinics when nobody could get a shot, but they all desperately wanted to be home for the holidays, inspiring other businesses to do the same. I did it as a city councilor when I sponsored the state's first municipal mask mandate to protect Portland workers and citizens, inspiring other communities in the state to do the same thing and follow our leadership. And I've done it fighting to bring back the Franklin Street project to restore a neighborhood that was destroyed in Portland in the 1960s and bring on potential thousands of units of affordable housing. I've done this before. I know what we need to do. I'm a representative of a new generation of leadership, and I've shown time and again that I bring people together with a creative coalition of the concerned and the willing. And so I'm looking forward to talking to you tonight and sharing more about my vision for Portland.
Now we will begin the questions and the rotation as determined by the drawing of lots just before we began. And under that drawing, the first candidate to answer the first question will be Mr. Pugh. The question being, in previous mayoral administrations, not the current one, the relations between our elected mayor, appointed city manager, and busy city council became a publicly and famously frayed situation. What is your understanding of the powers and position of mayor? How will you conduct business with the other two branches on behalf of the people? Mr. Pugh.
It's a great point, and I think the way I think about it, the mayor has two primary goals. The first one is to lead by example in the way that you speak to constituents. And the thing that I would bring to that is a very vulnerable, open communication style, because the mayor needs to go to the people. Can you hear me in the back? No? Is this better? Okay, thank you. So what I would do in the position of mayor, and the way that I view the position, is twofold. I think the first thing is modeling the way that you speak with constituents, and that's everybody all the way across the community, and bringing a vulnerable and open and empathetic communication style to that, because that lets you cut through division, it lets you get to the core issues that are beneath talking points and really meet people where they are. And the second role is to scale that kind of communication style up to the city level. And so that means the city council, it means committees, it means the city staff, and working with those people to model that kind of communication in all city business. So I think that the strength that I bring to this is that I'm not going to come in and be a hard-charging person who has a very fixed idea about what needs to happen. I have my ideas, I have my proposals that I put out there to start the conversation, but the core of this for me is empathy and collaboration. I really value the experience that we have with Danielle West as a city manager. I'm really thankful for that. And I think it's really great because it enables the mayor to do this person-to-person work every single day. And that's what I would do, 5-6 days a week, the whole time, out in the community, in a church basement, talking to people every single day. And I think because I'm going to be at this higher level here, the city councilors are experts in their field. They're experts in their community. And I can't imagine a situation in which I would butt heads with them, because I'm always going to reflect the fact that they know what they're talking about. They know their constituents best. And my whole approach to this is, how can I enhance the work that's already being done? And that's one of the major things that I really am inspired about in Portland, is all of the people that are working so hard on these issues. And so me coming into this position, the first thing I'm going to ask is, what kind of support do you need? What do you need to help accelerate the work that you're already doing, and how can I help you get there to that next level?
Thank you, Mr. Pugh. The same question now to Mr. Ali.
Thank you very much, Mr. Herbst. I believe that the way it is written in our charter, we have a structure of government that is structured like a three-legged stool, which is that the mayor have to be someone who knows how to facilitate. The mayor should be a facilitator, a convener, and a collaborator. What do I mean by that? The mayor have to be able to work with the city council to bring forward the goals and aspirations of all councillors. And the mayor should also be able to work with the city manager to bring forward some of the work that the council and city staff want to see happen in the city. And the mayor should be able to engage, connect with the larger public. What I mean by that is the time that the mayor, you said we shouldn't, you refer to the previous mayor before the current one. We've seen the dysfunctioning that happened on the council. I think I got on the council a year after the previous mayor got elected, and I lived that time. A while ago, in a conversation with the current city manager, I thank her for bringing change into City Hall. I thank her for removing that toxic environment that my first 4 years was in. It is not a healthy working environment for anyone, not city staff, not councillors, and not people from the public who try to engage the seat of power in their city. When I first got elected, I have a different vision of what the mayor's office should be. But I learned fast that that is not going to cut it. And I took a step back and watched the way things were unrolling. And I believe that if we have someone who knows how to collaborate, who knows how to convene, who knows how to facilitate, we will have a very effective city. And I believe that person is me. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ali. Mr. Zaro, no, I beg your pardon. Mr. Dion, the same question.
Is it to me?
That is
Adams.
to Mr. Dion, yes.
Thank you, sir. I have never undertook an assignment or a responsibility or a post and played it out the way it had been by my predecessor. I need you to know that. I believe in leadership, and the core of leadership is to create a team. I've got a bunch of plaques at home I never display because I never feel I've earned the individual right to hang them on a wall, because not a single thing that I've accomplished in public service was done by me. It was done by the people that I brought together as a team. It was a group effort. That is my goal as a leader. Now, as a mayor, I see my role as the chief advocate for this city. It's not just to report what the council is doing, but it is to assert what the people of this city expect from our council, state government, and when necessary, the federal government. I think that's absolutely essential. I know my good colleague here talked about his experience. Attorney General Gonzalez gave me an award for developing the nation's best standard for civil rights unit. Attorney General Janet Reno came to the city to see our initiative on police and public health, which I would resurrect with some of this homelessness that's confronted us. Senator George Mitchell and President Clinton honored me for being a civic leader and advancing the interests of the communities I've served. I've done the same in the legislature. As sheriff, I tackled mental health. I called out the state that they'd allowed us to become a de facto mental health hospital, and is wrong. Jail is not therapeutic. Make no mistake about it. And I'll do the same for Portland. Where I'm needed to speak out for this city, I will be there. When I need to tell the council that there is a sentiment, an expectation from our citizens, I have to be that voice. That's the mayor. The mechanical part is facilitating meetings. The challenge of a mayor is to balance community expectations against political hurdles. That's the primary role of a mayor in my mind. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dion. May I remind the audience, please, to turn off all cell phones and mechanical devices that might otherwise make a sound during the debate. Mr. Zaro, the same question.
Thank you. So for me, the mayor has two major roles. Can everyone hear me? Primary for me that I believe is an underutilized mechanism of our council's rules in the charter is that the mayor plays a significant role in setting the agenda. So when we're talking about the major issues we are looking at, when we're looking at homelessness, housing affordability, infrastructure, climate change, the mayor's role is imperative to making sure we are tackling our greatest issues. Absolutely, a couple of folks have already said that the mayor works between the council and the city staff and the community. But the mayor, in my opinion, its second most important role is to be the conduit between the community and chambers. I always say City Hall is the people's house. And we've seen over the past decade or so apathy, we're seeing fewer and fewer people engage in our local government. And you have to remember, municipal government is boots on the ground. You can reach out and touch us. And even though I love the idea that all district councilors are respected as experts in their fields and we won't butt heads, we certainly butt heads. But it's for the What about now? Okay, thank you. So the mayor does bring people together, but the mayor has a responsibility to defend our form of government, defend our multiracial, multi-generational democracy right now, when it feels like now more than ever, it is pressing that we reiterate to our community that we are here to do your work alongside you. I understand, I loved that our current mayor literally brought a copy of the charter with her, because it is important to know our form of government and how we interact with each other. But I see the mayor's role as that connection, not just with the community to call them back into chambers, but also to reach out to Augusta, who's our greatest partner. So it's a significant role. The mayor of any city is one of the hardest jobs in America. That person's job is to wake up every single morning and see what fire needs to be put out, who needs to be helped, what needs to be tended to. And that is a significant burden. But they don't do it alone. I do agree somewhat with the current mayor that the mayor is one of 9 and does stand alongside the other 8. But we're only going to accomplish things when we work closely together, implementing the policies that the people want to see. Obviously, we can put our own fingerprints on it. So for me, our current form of government, our mayor, actually is extremely effective, but it requires you to roll up your sleeves and work with people. It is not the emperor of Portland. It's someone who is tasked with getting everyone together on the same page.
Thank you. Time. Mr. Costa, the same question.
Thank you. I probably won't need 3 minutes to answer this. I think that the job of the mayor is, first and foremost, to be the leader of the city government. So obviously you represent the city in formal capacity. You're the primary liaison between City Hall and the legislative delegation. For example, between the City of Portland and our federal delegation. We play that formal role. But most of the work of the mayor is really about trying to organize local government. It's about working with your colleagues on the city council to organize the work of the council, to agree on priorities that the council collectively wants to address and try to channel the work for how you're going to address each of those issues as effectively as possible. It is the job and the role of the mayor to work with city staff to make sure that the work of the council is being represented throughout the implementation and throughout the executive functions of city government. Those are the primary responsibilities of the mayor. I've had the experience, at least of the candidates on stage here, of having served with Mayor Brennan, having served with Mayor Strimling, and having served with Mayor Snyder. So I've had an interesting inside look at what I think has worked and what hasn't worked under each administration. And the bottom line is that I think the most important thing is that the mayor view the role as a partnership, and particularly a partnership with city staff and the city manager. For me personally, that's almost a hard thing to talk about your relationships with other people. But one of the most important things is that I've known so many of the city staff for years and years. So I know that literally from the first moment, I'll walk in the door and say, hey, Danielle, hey, Michael, the new city attorney, and can do that all the way down the line across a whole number of departments who don't just know me by face, but know me because we worked together for a lengthy period of time, for a period of years, through some very trying dynamics internally with City Hall. And all of them know that they can trust me, and they know that I have had their backs in the past when city staff have come under fire, unfortunately, by previous mayors. So it's, you know, that is such an important function of the mayor to view it as a partnership more than some sort of legal exercise in defining where my authority ends and yours begins. That's never been successful in my experience, and it's the job of the mayor to make sure that that's not the dynamic.
Time, and thank you, Mr. Costa. Under the rotation established by the drawing before we began, the second question will be answered first by Mr. Ali. And I will pose the question now. This year, Portland opened the new homeless service center with 208 beds, full the first night. Encampments of those unhoused and homeless have been removed from Bayside, Deering Oaks, Fore River, Parkway, and other places. Our city rapid response teams have been offering good help to residents, but the numbers grow. Should the city open a pre-approved camping site providing security, sanitation, water, and warmth? Or what would your administration offer as a possible answer to the situation of the homeless and unhoused?
Thank you, Mr. Adams. I do agree. At the last workshop that we had, the idea of the sanctioned encampment came up. I think if we are able to find a location in the city, I will support that. What that will do is it will bring together all the individuals that have on different parts of the city. Long before now, there are individuals who were in encampments. They are just not in plain sight for several years. But the situation have escalated because of lack of housing, lack of support for our neighbors who have mental health. I did share something during council meeting a few days ago, and I think last night, which is that the individuals who are in the encampment, they are not all the same. We have individuals who ran out of luck and needed a little bit of help. And then we have individuals who are chronically unhoused. And then we have individuals with extensive mental health or substance use. As we are looking for long solutions for all of these, we need to work with the state. We also need to reach out to our federal partners and see what type of resources will be available. For those with the, extensive mental health, just giving them housing may not be the solution that they need. They need more than that. I used to work with an organization called Volunteers of America North in New England. We used to have a house on Brackett Street that I worked there for 5 years. And we had similar clienteles. What we do is we have what is called a wrap-around program where they live in that house. And in that house, they get all the services that they need. I think once we have resources from the state and from the federal government, we will be able to replicate that here in Portland. But for now, I'm looking forward to see the report that is coming from the committee that the city created, I think in the next week or so. And that will inform how whoever becomes the next mayor will work in solving this problem that we have in our city. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ali. Mr. Dion, same question.
Thank you, Mr. Adams. One of the responsibilities of a mayor is to tell the truth. To tell the truth, even it might not be popular at the moment to say so. Our current efforts are not working. They simply are not working. We have made many overtures to try to resolve this under an umbrella of social welfare, services, it's not working. People are not taking the offers and the resources and the beds that we present to them. These camps, let me talk about it this way. We talk a lot about the people that are there. I need to talk about the people who experience the consequence of those camps. The open and notorious criminal conduct, the open use of drugs, the incidents of theft, criminal mischief, public lewdness, defecation, the destruction of private property. That has to be talked about. As mayor, I intend to deal with that. Social work has a place, but so does law enforcement. We need to control and apply rules of conduct that I expect from each one of you in the public square. We need to apply those to the camps, and then we might have a chance. But for right now, many of those individuals simply will not move on. We've made them too sticky. They will stay as long as it's possible. And the only true threat that faces them is the November wind and what follows that. We need to be realistic. I can't look there and just see victims. I spent 12 years running a jail. I know these people. Some of them go, Dion, how's it going? Right? And I ask, why are you here? And they chuckle. They're here because no rules apply. They can live their lives, as destructive as it is, and really, they're on a spiral of slow motion suicide. And sometimes protective custody is necessary as an intervention. It's hard. It's a difficult decision to make as a government. But if we truly believe in their best interest, and I do that as a defense attorney, sometimes I tell my clients, I need to get you into an institution. None of them ever say, great idea, Dion, all right? None of them. But sometimes it has to be done. As mayor, I have heard the community clearly on this issue. I will advocate not only for the homeless, because that's not a crime. It's the conduct that occurs in those camps. It's the exploitation of women who are unsafe. We don't even patrol those at night. How dare we? How dare we let them be out there in those camps, exposed to any type of violence that they won't report because of who they are and the condition they're in? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Zara. Mr. Zaro, same question.
Thank you, Mr. Adams. I believe Desmond Tutu once said that we spend too much time at the bottom of the river pulling out bodies instead of being at the top, wondering why people are throwing themselves in. Encampments are a symptom of the problem. And I want to be clear that I agree entirely that we cannot sustain where we are at. We cannot be okay with encampments, or I cannot be okay with encampments, I should say, because for me that means we have failed at housing people. I'm going to be honest and say that I believe housing is a human right. And we are looking at generations of bad policies and wealth inequity that has ended up where we are today. So I think you're right, we do need to be honest with people. This isn't going to be solved overnight. And I understand that there are a lot of people in the community that are dealing with this as they're running a business or their home is right around the corner. But our unhoused neighbors need us, and we are doing our best right now. However, we're not doing enough. I don't believe that we should sanction encampments because I think we can do better. My platform calls for transitional housing. There are 3 lanes of housing. There's emergency housing. We have an emergency shelter we just opened at capacity day 1. There's transitional housing, when coupled with housing first policies, removes the remaining barriers. And then where society has really failed is permanent housing, and I hope we get to talk about that later this evening. I think we should prioritize 100 units of transitional housing units with housing first policies and wraparound services like many other cities in the country have done already. It can be paid for easily. These units are about $44,000 each. We have about $9 million in the Housing Trust Fund. We have $13 million that the state has allocated for housing first policies, and another $70 million for affordable housing. This is not Portland's problem to solve on its own. It has been Portland for too long, and we can't do it on our own. As mayor, I will call in the region, I will call in the governor's office and our legislature to work with us, because everyone comes to us because we have all the services. I understand that. I was walking around the other day in one of the encampments on Marginal Way talking to folks, and there was a woman who's been on and off unhoused for a few years. She lives in Portland, and she was telling me that there are more and more people who are from Lewiston, who are from rural Maine, who have been showing up, and she doesn't know anyone. We've seen the Lewiston City Council vote down emergency shelter. We've seen Cape Elizabeth decide not to build affordable housing. And why? Because Portland is leading the way. So it's on the next mayor and the next council to call those communities to the table and say, we're not going to do this alone anymore. Portland takes care of its own people, but we need help in making sure that we are meeting the needs without harming our unhoused neighbors or our community any further.
Time. Thank you. For the established rotation, Mr. Costa, same question.
Thank you, Herb. So, very much to agree with in what was just said by Andrew, but at the same time, I believe that it misses the point of the urgent matter that is currently in front of us. It is my sincere hope that whoever takes the oath of office, which will happen in December, isn't still dealing with the issue as it exists right now, because it will be even more dangerous then as the December weather kicks in than it is now. But the immediate question, and what I think that we should be very clear about, is that if the encampments are still in place as they are right now, that we need to begin the process of starting to wind them down. These are terrible for the people that we say we are trying to serve. That is not my opinion, it's the opinion of every service provider that I talk to. We know that the instances of rape and sexual assault are horrendous right now. We know that there is open drug use. We know that there are all these problems with public safety. We know that neighborhood businesses, that neighbors in the area don't feel safe, and legitimately so. They are consistently dealing with the problems of used needles. They are consistently dealing with the problems of defecation, of physical threats. That is not a sustainable path for us to be on, and we have to be honest with ourselves that we are over the line from helping people into enabling some destructive behaviors, and that serves no one's best interests. What we have to do is use every tool at our disposal to stand up temporary shelters if we can't get people placed into services, whether that is relying on state government to stand up temporary shelters in partnership with us, whether it's relying on nonprofits who operate in our community to help stand up additional shelters in the community, whether it's reaching out to FEMA. We need to use everything at our disposal to make sure that we can provide some type of shelter to people. But what we have right now is unacceptable, and it doesn't serve their interests. It puts them in so much danger. I have spent so much time over the years talking to people that suffer from homelessness and hearing the variety of their stories, the heartbreak that so many of them have had to experience. It is a point of pride that Portland does not shirk its responsibilities. It is a point of pride that we try to deal with this, that we have not run from this. We have spent millions of dollars to open a brand new shelter because we knew that Oxford Street was unacceptable. All of those things are points of pride. What is happening right now is in no one's interest, and the next mayor, hopefully, will not have to be dealing with this level of the issue, but if they are, we need to address it firmly and honestly.
Time, and thank you very much. Mr. Pugh, the same question.
Thank you, Herb. This is a really, really huge question and a really emotional question. You know, it's one of the primary reasons I got into the race because, you know, I've seen this problem accelerate the entire time that I've been in Portland, and it really is a humanitarian crisis. And I obviously agree that the conditions as they stand right now in the encampments are not acceptable for the people who live there. But we can't bring a bulldozer in and clear out some tents because that doesn't help anyone. And it resets the clock for all of the people that are already on the ground, making connections with individuals, bringing them into the services that they need, and making that progress with them. So every time we clear out, that's a euphemistic word. We're bringing a bulldozer and we're crushing people's belongings. We're restarting the clock on all of this. That's not humane and it's not effective. So we have a responsibility to everyone in Portland, whether they're housed or unhoused. So obviously, an encampment can't be a permanent solution, but we have to be honest that we can't just keep clearing them. So let's get people the services they need. Let's address the safety issues head on. Let's bring in bathrooms, let's bring in sanitation, bring in services. Let's make these places as safe as we can. But the real crux of it is obviously going to be housing. We need to take every available resource and put that into housing first. Because at the end of the day, it's so hard to get any level of stability if you don't have a door you can lock, you don't have a place you can take a shower. The expectation that someone is going to go from sleeping in a tent and then be able to go into a mental health service or something like that is not realistic for everyone. And that's a failure on our part. I don't want to demonize anyone who is going through an unimaginable situation. I think many people have no idea what it's like to be unhoused and how incredibly destabilizing that is. So before we demonize anyone who's experiencing that, let's shine the light on us and look at how we as a society and how our economic systems have created the conditions that have allowed this to proliferate not only in Portland, but all over the place. And I think that people are right that it has to be a regional issue as well, and we need to get all hands on deck. But we need to be focused on how do we get ahead of this? How do we build as much housing first as possible that is no barrier so people can go in and we're not having a paternalistic attitude toward people telling them that they need to adhere to X, Y, and Z regulations in order to have what is a human right. So I think a lot of what has been said up here is smart, but I really want to emphasize that housing first has to be the primary thing that we're focusing on, because you have to start there and then everything else follows that.
Thank you, Mr. Thank you, Mr. Pugh. Under the rotation established, this question next goes first to Mr. Dion. The question being, new Mainers keep arriving apace. Do you support allowing non-citizens to vote in local Portland city elections?
No. No. Hold on a second. I'm sorry. Some questions just beg a short answer. My grandparents were immigrants. I understand that. I've worked in immigration for a long time in a variety of roles. Some of my best friends have come from other countries, and I'm proud of their success in this country. But I think citizenship is a core foundation of this democracy. And I firmly believe that the right and privilege to vote belongs to a citizen. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Dion. Under the established rotation, Mr. Zarro, you are next. Same question.
This actually, I'm going to be honest with you, this was not one that I prepared for our mayoral debates. It's something that I'm familiar enough with that I believe it was talked about a few years ago in the city of Portland, but didn't get a lot of traction. It certainly hasn't come before the council since I've been on there. I would be open to the conversation. To be completely honest, I don't know enough about it to be able to give you an articulate yes or no. My great-grandparents came here as well from Italy and Ireland. And, I believe people who are coming here, their goal is to become citizens. And voting in our elections is one of the greatest privileges we get to have as citizens. And I think we could do a lot more to incentivize people showing up and voting. So that's your plug to show up and vote every election. But I'm open to it. I think that's an interesting conversation. I think Portland, as the largest city in the state of Maine, if it were going to happen in Maine, Portland would probably lead the way on that one. But I would have to do more inflection and understand precedent that that might set, or learn from other municipalities who have considered this as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Zaro. Under the rotation, Mr. Costa, same question.
Mr. Adams. Yeah, I mean, I would certainly consider it, but I think that it's something that has to be put to the citizens as a charter amendment regardless of anything else. This issue has come up several times over the years, and I would caution that every time we wind up in the same arguments with many of the fiercest advocates for new Mainers and asylum seekers and others cautioning us not to do this because it is extremely easy to create problems for anyone in a federal process trying to seek citizenship or asylum status. You know, my honest view, I think, having seen this over the years, is I think this is an issue that gets blown out of scale. My hunch is that this is not some sea change kind of thing. It's something that, even if implemented, would lead to a few dozen votes in most municipal races. So I think it's something that we have to look at a minimum holistically. You know, but I think that there are significant issues with it. And frankly, I have to say my recollection is it was determined that it's most likely illegal under state law as well. So I try not to make a big political push out of things that fall into that category. And I will stop there.
Thank you, Mr. Costa. Mr. Pugh, same question.
Thank you. You know, similar to Andrew, this is not something that I have an extensive knowledge about. I like the idea because I think it goes to the core question of powerlessness. And when I look at new Mainers and I talk to them, one of the major issues is that these people are fleeing incredibly difficult situations where they have no power. And then they come to Portland, and we should be really proud of that fact, and the fact that, I mean, these people are enormous assets to our community. But they come to Portland, and they still don't have power. They don't have the power to vote. They don't have the power to work, importantly. And what I would do to figure out how to proceed with this is ask them if that is something that they're interested in voting. I've mostly been talking to people about the work side, and I have a much clearer idea about that. But if this is something that I heard from new Mainers that was important to them, then I'd absolutely advocate for it. And I think that going to that issue of powerlessness is really at the core of this, and how do we empower new Mainers to become members of our society and fulfill the obligation we have to people when they come here. You know, it should be a really great honor for us that people choose to come to Portland when they are trying to flee really desperate situations. So I really would want to talk to people and understand where they're coming from, but I'm certainly open to the idea.
Thank you, Mr. Pugh. Mr. Ali, same question.
Thank you very much. I have engaged this issue extensively. I have spoken to a lot of immigrants who are interested in that. I brought it forward, I think, in 2017. But if I was to bring it back again, I would do it differently. What will I do differently? The one that I brought forward before did say that all immigrants. The one that I will bring forward will say immigrants who have green cards. It's been done in different municipalities across the country. It does increase the number of immigrants who are running for office, and it does increase the number of immigrants who participate in our political discussion. They do anyway, and if we give them the opportunity to run, they will continue to do it. To answer your question, Mr. Pugh, yes, I did talk to a lot of immigrants at that time. When it was brought forward, there was a long line made up of immigrants, and they testified that we want to do this. However, the way that was written did say all immigrants who are here, which will put some of them in a situation where it will impact their immigration process. However, if, like I said earlier, if I was to bring it back again, it will be for those who have a green card. And there is nothing
more beautiful, more fulfilling than for an immigrant to run for office and be elected, because you have one sitting here. In 2013, I got elected. I was an immigrant. Yes, I was also an American citizen at that time. And I ran for office, and the people of this city did accepted my bid and got me into office, and I've still been here. So, yes, I will support something like that with a caveat that says that you have to be a green card holder to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ali. Under the established rotation, the next question will be answered first by Mr. Ali. Mr. Zarro, you wish to respond? I'm sorry. Doing too many things here at once. Please continue. This week, government public meetings in Bangor, Portland, and Hollowell were halted by outside hate speech. This summer, extremists marched in Lewiston, Augusta, and in Portland. Confrontation and escalation may be their goal. As mayor, how will you lead the response, both in public safety, personnel, and in public spirit? How should Portland respond?
So I'll tell you what their goal is as one of the few up here who have been living through it regularly for some time now. Their goal is to undermine our form of government. Their goal is to make us ineffective. Their goal is to interrupt your ability as constituents to do city business, and we've watched that happen time and again. This is an affront to our democracy. It is white supremacy, it is racist, it is misogyny, it is homophobic, xenophobic, anti-Semitic. And I just want to apologize for any of you who have tried to engage your local government recently and you've had to engage this yourselves. Here's what we're gonna do though. We're gonna stop the ability for people to hurdle these attacks on electeds and fellow Portlanders. So right now we've had this pretty wonderful ability to have remote participation because of the pandemic. Really good part was that you were allowed to engage with your local government. You could go home after work, cook some dinner, and give public comment on something that meant to you. And if you had a disability and you couldn't physically be in City Hall, you were empowered to engage people. Those are good things, but unfortunately, that has become weaponized. So I would support removing temporarily remote participation and returning to in-person meetings only. In fact, I do support that, and I've talked about that with my colleagues. Moving forward, we need to do everything in our power to protect our democracy and to remind one another that we have to stand united, from government to business, universities, libraries, spiritual institutions, that we are a multiracial, democratic society that absolutely 100% is committed to the reality that this rhetoric, white supremacy, Nazis are not welcome in the city of Portland, Maine. And that is something that I'm fully committed to, and making sure that I protect our council and our city hall. I cannot emphasize this enough, and maybe it's because it's personal to me. Maybe because a lot of the electeds in this room that I have the privilege of serving with have to deal with this, and I have to watch that. It's unacceptable, and I hope every single one of you in this room are enraged by it and are going to stand by us. Whoever the next mayor is, me or one of the other four up here, you will stand unified with us in making sure that it stops now and that we hold the line against this vitriol and hate. Thank you.
Under the established rotation, we now return to this end of the table. And same question, Mr. Costa.
Yeah, I think first, just as a person, I mean, all of us want to give our our hearts go out to all of you who are having to deal with this day in and day out. It's not something that I ever had to deal with, at least not in this way. During my time in government, it's so far out of bounds in our democratic society. It offends me so much more deeply now because I'm a new father of a Jewish son, and just I can't even speak coherently about it. Let me just say, I think this is one of those issues that is so far beyond politics, and this is our second night in a row, as many of you know, doing a forum like this together. And I think on an issue like this, it's important for all of us to just be really clear that there is no daylight between any of us. And I hope that we made that clear last night on TV. Many of us, we have known each other for years, and we stand completely united on this. Whoever wins an election for mayor, this is so far beyond politics. It's so far beyond elections. And I think, I just hope that everyone takes away that message, that please don't, parse our phrasing or our body language as we answer this. We all feel exactly the same way. It sickens us to our core. It poisons the well of our democracy. And whoever wins is going to do everything in their power to try and stop this, to deal with anything that is more serious on the law enforcement side, and to make sure that people feel safe and welcomed in our community.
Thank you, Mr. Costa. Mr. Pugh, same question.
Thank you, and thank you, Justin. I absolutely agree with everything that's been said. We are absolutely unified on this. It is absolutely shocking. It is terrible. If anyone hasn't seen it and has the stomach, I encourage you to watch it just to see what we're up against. It's really revolting, and it's absolutely something that we will all stand against, and we do stand against unequivocally. And I think the first thing for me is safety, 100%. We have to talk to the people in our community that are going to be targeted and that are targeted. As Andrew was saying, as Pius has experienced, we need to talk to these people and say, what do you need to feel safe? And we are going to give you that 100%, whether that's law enforcement, whether that's constraints on how the Zoom comments are taken or cutting them off entirely. I'm very open to that. I think Mark made a good suggestion yesterday, which is maybe we go to written Zoom statements so people can still participate, but we can screen out any of the horrible stuff that is coming through. So the very first thing is safety, and I would reach out to everybody on the stage for help. I would talk to Mark from the police perspective. I would talk to Andrew and Pius as people that have experienced it, and Justin as a new father. These are all great resources, and everybody is going to be unified on this. And the thing that we have to be really careful about is that this is not just limited to Zoom comments. It's not just limited to people trolling or trying to be disruptive for fun. There is a very, very serious undercurrent of white supremacy that is fomenting in the nation at large and also in Maine. If you're not aware, there have been white supremacists that have moved up to northern Maine, and they're building a compound to use as a training facility to enact further hate and further violence against minorities and people in our community. And I mentioned before, I grew up in eastern Washington, about 30 minutes from Idaho, and that's where the Aryan Nation was. So I have been dealing with this, sadly, my whole life. I remember the Martin Luther Day King Jr. parade was canceled in Spokane when I was growing up because of a bomb threat from the Aryan Nation. So you have to oppose these things, absolutely, and we have to go to the core of the issue. As much as we have to be 100% unequivocal about opposing this ideology, I don't believe that anyone is born as a Nazi. I don't think anyone is born with hate in their heart. And we are losing people somewhere along the line. And usually what's happening is that these are people who are economically disadvantaged and they feel betrayed by society. They don't have opportunity to grow, to have a good career. Maybe they come from a broken home. Maybe, like me, they grew up without a father. I have friends who I have lost to this right-wing ideology from childhood.
And these are the people that didn't start out this way, and I could see their slide. So we need to be very clear that we need to get ahead of the economic conditions that create an environment that fosters extremism. We can build a society in which extremism is totally destroyed because we don't give it the opportunity to flourish, but we have to focus on the root causes.
Thank you, Mr. Pugh. Time. Mr. Ali, same question.
Thank you very much. I think I have a lived experience dealing with this. A few days ago, I sent letters to people who are on my mailing list, sharing an experience from someone who doesn't even live in Portland. When I used to work at USM, I never used the phone number on my desk. I took a vote at the council level. The next day, I received phone calls from all over the country, from people who don't agree with me, and left a lot of messages about the color of my skin, about my faith. So this is an issue that is not just impacting Portland, except that in Portland, the past few months, about a year, it's intensified. We receive phone calls. What we do get on Zoom during our virtual meetings is just a little bit of what some of us got in our emails or sometimes on our phones. I have dedicated my life working against hatred of any kind. Recently, I wrote an op-ed supporting a bill that is in Congress called Building Civic Bridges Act, BCBA. And it's a basic concept that we need to talk to each other. We need to find a way to meet in between. Of course, there's a difference between extremism and white supremacists. They are beyond being extremists. I will work with the council, whether I am the mayor or not, in the next few days, to look at what is available to us. Is there a way to not take away people's ability to participate in our civic process, whilst not giving a platform for white supremacists to spew their hate of what makes us a community? We live in a country that have I'm going to come down to local. Portland is beautiful. We are a very diverse city with different people coming from different backgrounds, different faith, different sexual orientation, different everything. But at core, we all talk to each other. So I will not create a platform that will give white supremacists an opportunity to spew hatred, to pitch us against each other. I will do all I can, working with my colleagues, and we are already doing that, looking at what do we have, what are our options in separating those people from people who genuinely want to engage the city government. Thank you.
Thank you. I take this opportunity to remind you, should you have an individual question that we might, time allowing, be able to pose to the members of the panel, that you hold that card in the air so that our floor manager, William, may come around and take them from you and deliver them to the desk up front. Thank you very much. Under the established rotation, now we are returning to this end of the... I beg your pardon, Mr. Dion. There was so much going on here. My apologies. Mr. Dion, you are next.
I'm disabled and I wasn't able to get any of the materials that were on the chair.
Please take the cards to him. Thank you very much. Mr. Dion, please continue.
I want to take this off because I think it's a little bit of bullshit to wear it on this question. I feel very powerful and emotional about what's happened to my colleagues. I see them in the audience. I'm all done with this shall not stand. I'm all done with we'll figure out how to deflect it. I chased skinheads with the Boston police. I fought the Klan with the ADL. I worked on white supremacists with the Southern Poverty Law Center. And you know what the trick is? You got to hold these SOBs accountable. I'm not going to be polite on this. These were acts of community terrorism. They stood in the stead of their own communities to take those assaults. Sure, they were the named targets, but for every Native American in this city, the message was clear when it was directed to April, right? Or Victoria, or Pius, or Andrew. You just can't, we can't, as a community, stand here and say, okay, well, we'll get a little niftier about our Zoom messaging to see if we can change. We need to take this. There were events that occurred in the last meeting. I am comfortable as a former police officer, as a sheriff, as a criminal defense lawyer, that we should do all we can to charge and hold these individuals accountable, and be damned what happens in court. Bring them to court and let a judge decide. Let a judge decide if this was right. I can't play politics with this. This is people's lives, right? I don't want to engage in a committee of process, and we'll look at our rules, and we'll figure out, yeah, last night I said, let's see if we can do written text. But I went home and I chastised myself because that was being gutless. And that's what they really want, all right? That's what they want from all of us, that we'll find some polite, restrained way to tolerate them. That's why that's a bad word. No, we got to do something. So that's what I'm calling on. The Attorney General and I were seatmates in the legislature. We discussed criminal strategies to defend against the government power. I'm willing to go to him and say, Aaron, we have got to initiate an investigation here. People have to be held accountable. If we don't send a message that they will not be held accountable, that we refuse to do that out of some sort of polite civility, then we're doomed. All right? So that's what I want to hear from the community, is that we're going to take action about this, not simply talk about it. I'm starting to sound like you, Victoria, now. All right, but...
Thank you, Mr. Dion.
Thank you.
Under the established rotation now, the questions return to this end of the table. And the next question will be directed first to Mr. Pugh. In our tight financial times, did you get a chance to answer, Mr. Costa? I'm sorry, I'm getting notes, and people, please, in the audience, be respectful of others and don't rattle things and eat here. Thank you. Yes, Mr. Costa.
I just think I'm first in the order.
Thank you very much. Scrambling here to keep things in order, and I appreciate your assistance. In our tight financial times, what importance will your administration place on open space, green space, and public parks, and where would they fall in your scheme of funding?
Well, I think green space, open space, public space is very important for Portland's quality of life. And the city has made a concerted effort for a long time to protect those spaces and to adequately fund them. We have mechanisms in place that set aside funding on an annual basis for the land bank to make use of, and a whole other variety of things. They are really cornerstones in a lot of ways, and you know, the city has had a long-standing practice of trying to get us to the point where every individual can be within a 10-minute walk of a park or an open space. We have long been committed to the idea that that is an essential element of productive neighborhoods and good quality of life for our citizens, and I will continue to support all of the existing efforts as mayor, and I will be very quick with the hope that we can get to additional questions as well.
Thank you, Mr. Costa. Mr. Pugh, same question.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that this is, green space and open space is critical, and it's a question of equity, because I think that by definition, an open public space is accessible to everyone. And if you're at the lower end of the economic spectrum, or you're growing up in an apartment, or you don't want to be at home, you have a green space to go to. I can't tell you how much time I spent at Audubon Park when I was growing up because I didn't want to be at home. And so I think looking at this through the lens of equity is really important because it's not just a wish list item. We have to make sure that everyone has access, that they can walk safely to the park. And that's the other thing that I've been hearing talking to people at Portland Trails and people in neighborhoods is the connectors are really important. So you want to be able to go from your house, take your bike, and not have to ride down Washington Avenue. I have been working with going to talk to the people that are working on the Allen's Corner intersection, which is kind of an awful intersection. And the idea is that you want to be able to walk safely to a green space. So it's hugely important. And I think that we should also make sure that these spaces reflect the unique character of the neighborhoods that they're in. So they should be a community effort. We don't want them all to look the same. And I think when we're looking at our rezoning effort right now, this should be a primary focus. And let's figure out ways that we can get green spaces in unconventional places, something like street trees, so that you can sort of add these green spaces to places that you wouldn't expect. And also it has a big implication for carbon. So it's a really green thing to do. And yeah, I think it's a great thing and we should prioritize it.
Mr. Ali, same question.
Thank you very much. We are so lucky in Portland. We have a lot of public spaces. I think each neighborhood is about 15 minutes from a public space. What we don't have is a lot of, some neighborhoods have greens, some neighborhoods have trees, and some don't. I think the neighborhood that I live in do not have a lot of trees. And I would look into working with city staff and possibly private partners to put up more trees. And we've done that in Portland before. There is a foundation, I don't remember what it's called, but it's, I think, Portland Park Conservative or something like that, which is a private foundation that is work with the city. We partner with them, and they are opening parks. We can do the same thing if the city does not have the resources, because we have a lot of challenging issues with trees, and put up trees and green zones in part of the city that do not have any. But what I know is that most of the neighborhoods in Portland are about 15 minutes away from a park. What we need is more greens in spaces that do not have those greens. And Dylan, I agree with you, it's an equity issue. And I will look closely through equity lens and see where those trees are needed, and make sure that I will work with the council, the staff, and figure out a way to put those trees there. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Ali. Mr. Dion, same question.
Thank you, Mr. Adams. When I left the sheriff, most sheriffs, when they leave office, the staff present them with a firearm as a memento of their service. I received a tree. And it really was quite touching. They planted it to the entrance of the jail, not the entrance all of you would go through, but what we call the Sally Port, where those being detained drive up into the jail. So there's a Japanese maple there with a plaque with their sentiment of my tenure as sheriff. And that really means a lot to me, because a long time into the future, when everyone here has passed, I hope it's a mighty tree, all right? And that my name is attached to it will have probably faded and worn off, so it won't matter. But they said it spoke to the type of leadership that I had provided, that I had rooted them, and I gave them some promise of what could come even after I would be gone and they would be gone. But on this issue of trees for the city, look, I thought this was the fourth city, right? Somebody asked me that in a written communication about what to do about trees. It's very easy. Plant as many as we can wherever we can, and begin in the neighborhoods that have the least amount of canopy. I know there are a lot of scientists and advocates that could give me all sorts of studies, but I'm a simple person with problems like this. If you walk down a street and there's no trees, that might be a hint, all right? And the Bayside neighborhood should be a primary place to make that kind of green investment, In my yard, if ever you came to visit me, there is a massive tree. I've been told 3 different ideas of what it is. But when we built the house, you can always trust a contractor to level everything with the bulldozer, right? That's all they're thinking about. And I had one of those hippie moments where I went out, held my tree, which was about that big around, and I said, "This shall stand," all right? And he really gave me a hard time because it was going to affect his grading. 2 of us cannot put our arms around that tree today, all right? And I look at it, the ice storm of '98, some of you remember that? Terrible crack. The center broke, and that tree survived. I talked to it every day. I told it it was stronger than me. And she listened, right? It's the only woman in my life that listens to me. So yes, as many as we can, where we can, and start in those neighborhoods that have the fewest trees or any type of canopy. Thank you.
Thank you. Time. Mr. Zarro, same question. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Adams. Well, I'm really happy to learn that everybody is pro-tree, so we have checked that box tonight. First thing and everyone said really wonderful things that I'm in agreement with everything. Plant a tree whose shade you will never sit beneath, right? We have an obligation to future generations to do a lot better than we've been doing. And a lot of my work on the council for the past 3 years is to be the really loud climate guy. And I have prioritized parks at every opportunity. For those of you who paid attention, I'm the District 4 counselor, and when there was a concert that was coming to Payson Park, I have never seen so many constituents show up for an issue than that one. We had a District 4 meeting on it, and the room was like this, and it was all about the park, because the city of Portland is known for its parks. We have amazing public space. In almost every neighborhood, but I did work with former Councilor Ray to prioritize and allocate, I think it was $600,000 for trees in the Bayside neighborhood, because there's something called the tree equity score. And if you look, there's a map online, you can look on it, and there's parts of our city where there's a score of 100, and then there's parts of the city where it's a score of 4, and Bayside is one of those examples. And that is a really good example of environmental racism. And so we have to do better, right? It's not, and we've talked about this, a few folks up here have talked about, it's not equitable. So we have to do a better job, and we need to make sure that when we are prioritizing green space, we're doing it in a way that's multimodal. So you're not going to use your car to get there. You're going to walk or bike. I'm a big fan of trails, and I know sometimes that's not everyone's thing. They want other things, but we have a really wonderful trail system that connects our city. You can be in the middle of the woods and realize, whoa, I'm in the biggest city in the state right now in a forest. And I think that's just really special. It's why people want to be here. It's why we're overall a very healthy city, because that complements what our values are. I was working as the chair of the Sustainability and Transportation Committee on a tree heritage ordinance to protect certain trees from being demolished, because the carbon sequestration is significantly greater for large trees that have been around than if we're putting something in a tree well that is going to be compounded with salt and sand and all that stuff. So we need to reimagine the way we treat our public spaces as we fight climate change. Planting trees is one way to do that. Preserving green space is a way to do that. And we can do it in a way where we're not compromising our housing goals, which I really hope we're able to talk about this evening. But overall, if there's one takeaway for you all tonight, it's that we are pro-trees. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Zarro. We are in this situation at this moment. The forum officially ends at 8:30, and we must clear the room by 9. However, to be fair and keep faith with members of the public who have submitted questions, candidates, may I ask if you will give us permission to do a bullet round very quickly, starting at this end with this particularly short question. And I am willfully blind to the clock for the moment. Will you accept that? Very well. Gentlemen, please list 1 or 2 or 3 bullet points that differentiate you from all other candidates. Go.
That's a tall order in bullet points. Unique experience, expansive vision, values-based leadership.
Ali.
Collaboration, courage, and I will issue a 50 million housing bond.
Thank you. Mr. Dion.
Lived experience, trust, capacity to build relationships.
Zaro.
I will tackle our housing crisis. I'm a compassionate, nuanced listener. And I love this city so much. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Zaro. And pass the mic down here quickly, please. Thank you. Mr. Costa, thank you.
I know a great deal about how City Hall works. I know a great deal about how our school department works. And I know a great deal about how finances work, because I'm both an accountant and a lawyer by training.
Thank you, gentlemen. And thank you. Remaining on the podium, indeed, are questions, as of others have brought up, about housing, about safe injection sites, about the cost of rent, and all the many things that go into making life in this city an interesting place. But what we must do now to keep faith with our friends in the public library who are letting us use this space is break now so that we may have a meet and greet with the candidates, so some of these questions may be raised one-on-one. Gentlemen, citizens, we've just scratched the surface. In your hands and in theirs, our city is in good hands. Thank you very much for coming tonight, and thank you to the student volunteers. I know. I mean, with that,
My decision to do the quick round, you know.